that please do a little saving, because remember what you earn, a portion of it belongs to you also, because the rest of it goes to government. So ladies and gentlemen, I wouldn't tire the people with the prosaic things. They like more lively things from Mr. Palkiwala, who will castigate the government right and left, and they will be quite happy. I'm very happy to be with you here today, and as I said, I shall not be speaking again. Thank you. I now call upon Mr. Palkiwala to give his address.
Speak about 3 inches away. There is an echo here, but not in the audience. There is no echo at all. And you want water? That's it.
The Chairman, Mr. Justice Hidayatullah, the Honorable Sheriff, Mr. Nana Chudasama, Mr. Apte, Mr. Pai, Mr. Divakara, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very grateful to the previous speakers for their generous, gracious words about me. There is a pleasant custom at annual general meetings of companies, which is a great time saver, that you take the notice calling the meeting as read. And I shall take it as presumed conclusively that you are familiar with the nuts and bolts of the budget, which you must have read about in the papers. In fact, the papers have left us with no option but to know what the budget contains. So let me come straight to the subject and tell you how I view this budget in the light of the requirements of this country. First, a word about the finance minister. I think he belongs to a rare species in India's political life. He is a man with a well-equipped, well-furnished mind, a man of total integrity, total sincerity, great dedication to the good of the country. So I hold him as a human being in the highest esteem and respect, apart from the fact that he has been a friend for at least 20 years. And the ends of his budget, which he has set out in the budget speech, are unexceptionable. You can't quarrel with any of the goals which he has set about himself. Apart from the budget speech, when you come to the budget proper, if I have to describe it in a few words, I would say, it is not a budget to make you deliriously happy, nor is it a budget to drive you to the verge of suicidal despair. Some have called it a good budget in bad times, although reserving the view that it would have been a bad budget in good times. But we are going through a period of what can only be described as bad times, as I'll try to show you in a moment. The task of the finance minister has been most unenviable, because he had to take not his party along with him, but the entire spectrum of economic thinking in the country, because the government can survive only with the support of BJP on the one side and the communists on the other side. Therefore, it is the totality of economic thinking in the subject which had to be looked at before he could frame a policy which can be said to be the policy underlying the budget. So you should not be very much surprised if there are some conflicting signals emitted by the budget. A few words as to what are the bad times in which, against the backdrop of which this budget has to be considered. To my mind, the darkest shadow over the economy of this country, I would describe as the national debt. The national debt not in the literal narrow sense in which it is used in different official documents, but the national debt in the sense of the totality of the indebtedness of the government of India, which has to be made good at some time or other. It means not merely the government securities and bonds, but for example the small savings which are all deposited with the government, which have come from the people, the provident fund dues of millions of people in this country, the public provident fund which is again with the government, and so forth. I would use the compendious expression the national debt in the sense of the total indebtedness of the government of India. Now today that national debt is 260,000 crores, and the interest paid on that national debt is 17,000 crores. It is the largest single slice of central government expenditure, this interest burden. The government has to pay by way of interest more than the total amount it spends either on defense or on planned programs. This is a very dangerous situation. In fact, it is so dangerous that I think it is the duty of every thinking citizen to ensure that he puts an end to this developing mischief before it goes out of control. There is a remedy, Article 292 of the Constitution, which provides that the Parliament may by law prescribe limits up to which debts can be incurred by the government, which are to be charged on the Consolidated Fund of India. But I am afraid no such law has yet been passed by Parliament. The Chakravarti Committee strongly recommended such a law should be passed. The Public Accounts Committee in 4 different reports have suggested very seriously that such a law should be passed. The very first-class Controller General whom we are lucky enough to have, made a suggestion last year that such a law should be passed. But up to now, because of public apathy, which is the great problem in our country, such a law has not been passed, because frankly half the members of Parliament would not know what such a law would be all about, and the other half are not pressurized by their constituents to pass such a law. Net result, there is still not even a strong public opinion built up, as it ought to be, that there should be such a ceiling or limit on public indebtedness. Now the more dangerous thing is not that you have the indebtedness of 260,000 crores as the total national debt in the large sense, but this is increasing, and even in this budget this debt will increase by 36,000 crores in the next 12 months. The foreign debt, what is called the external debt, will increase by 3,300 crores. So between the two debts, internal and external, there would be a total increase of more than 39,500 crores. That works out to 110 crores every single day. So by the time you get up tomorrow morning, the national debt will have increased by 110 crores. My own feeling is that the problem is so serious, not serious so much for us as for our children, that there should be a clock put up in every district, in every town and city of India. Let it be at the expense of charities. I am willing to contribute my own might. That clock should be called the Kal Yug clock. The Kal Yug clock will show the date, that is today would be said the 23rd March 1990, and it will show the total indebtedness today. Tomorrow it will show tomorrow's date, 24th March, and show the indebtedness having risen by 110 crores. I will give you an idea of how serious the matter is by comparing our situation with that of the world's most prosperous country, the United States. In the United States, there is a similar clock put up in New York. It is called the Doomsday Clock. And it shows how every second the national debt of the US government increases by $8,000. If you take it per second here, our national debt increases by more than 11,000 rupees per second. Now on the basis, which is a fair one, that what is a dollar to the United States is a rupee to India. We are going further than the United States in our compulsive borrowing spree. $8,000 there, 11,000 rupees per second in India. It is unimaginable. To me, it's a matter of total surprise how ministers can yet carry on with this kind of activity and yet not think of curtailing governmental expenditure apart from saying that they propose to do it. But the fact that they say it is proposed to be done has been said for the last 40 years. There has never been a year in the last 40 years when the government, the budget speech did not say that they want to contain, to limit the governmental expenditure. But it goes on. You can't blame the finance minister alone because there are other ministries who have no sense of self-restraint. It is because there is no sense of self-restraint that I am suggesting a law to be made by Parliament. Now this Kali Yuga clock would bring home to the people what the gravity of the situation is. It is caused by two factors. One, the revenue account deficit of the government, and secondly, the balance of trade deficit. The revenue account deficit arises from this, that the government lives beyond its own means and beyond your means and mine. For example, in this budget, by a man so good as Professor Madhu Dandavate, the revenue deficit, that's the deficit on revenue account, is no less than 13,000 crores. It is thought to be reduced to 7,200 by taking 5,800 from the capital account. That means the government will borrow 5,800 to pay for what would be known to economists as consumption. That is the ordinary consumption, that is the expenditure incurred on revenue account by the government. In other words, we are living on borrowed money year after year after year. It did not happen before 79-80, but since 79-80 it has been continuing, and every year it is aggravated with a vengeance. But people are not serious enough, they don't realize what damage you are causing to the national economy. The USA can afford to bear the burden. Can this poor country afford it? The balance of trade deficit I have dealt with. Let me come to the balance of trade deficit, let me come to after the revenue account deficit of the government.